So we are
Yes,
reading from,
thank
yes, thank you, Divya Matade. We are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We are on volume number 2, September 20, Butler, Pennsylvania, home of the Jeep. Haribol. I was just KB Mansika from Jharkhand, Uttarakhand. Haribol. Welcome to this Zoom call. Thank you very much for joining. Butler, Pennsylvania, home of the Jeep. Read a granite plaque in the city park. Butler, famous as the town where the US Army Jeep was invented in 1940, was an industrial city of 20,000 settled amid the hills of an area rich in oil, coal, gas, and limestone. Its industry consisted mainly of the factories for plate glass, railroad cars, refrigerators, oil equipment, and rubber goods. 90% of the local laborers were Native Americans. The nominal religion had always been Christian, mostly Protestant, with some Catholic. And in later years, a few synagogues has appeared. But there was no Hindu community at that time. Gopal Agarwal was the first Indian to move to Butler. As the Volkswagen bus pulled into town, the pre-dawn air was warm and humid. The morning edition of the Butler Eagle would soon be going to the newsstand. Quote, Red Chinese fire on India, unquote. Prime Minister Shastri declared Chinese communists out to dominate world. United Nations Council demand Pakistan and India ceasefire in 48 hours. Srila Prabhupada arrived at the Agarwal's home, Sterling apartment at 4 a.m. and Gopal invited him to sleep on the couch. Their place, a townhouse apartment, consisted of a small living room, a dining room, kitchenette, two upstairs bedrooms, and a bath. Here they live with their two young children. The Agarwal had lived in a Butler for a few years now and felt themselves established in a good social circle. Since their apartment had so little space, they decided that it would be better if Swami took a room at the YMCA and came to visit them during the day. Of course, living space wasn't the real difficulty. It was him. How would he fit into the Butler atmosphere? He was their guest, so they would have to explain him to their friends and neighbors. Srila Prabhupada was immediately a curiosity for whoever saw him. In anxiety, Mrs. Agarwal decided that instead of having people speculate about the strange man in orange robes living at her house, it would be better to let them know about him from the newspaper. She explained her plan to Prabhupada, who laughed, understanding that he didn't fit in. Sally hurried off to a Pittsburgh newspaper office, but the interviewer wasn't able to comprehend why this person should make an interesting story. Sally then took him to the local Butler Eagle, where his present was accepted and indeed newsworthy. September 22nd. A future article appeared in the Butler Eagle, quote, in fluent English, devotee of Hindu cult, explained commission to visit the West, unquote. A photographer had come to the Agarwal's apartment and had taken a picture of Srila Prabhupada standing in the living room holding an open volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. The caption read, Ambassador of Bhakti Yoga. The article began. There is a nice picture of that, and it shows this. One is 33 Riverside Drive, second 100 West 72nd Street, third 94 Bowery, fourth 26 2nd Avenue, 5 Washington Square Park, and 6 Thumbskin Square Park. Srila Prabhupada journey to America, that nicely described. August 13 left Calcutta, August 19 arrived in Colombo, August 21 to Cochin, August 23 to Red Sea, September 1 Port Said, Suez Canal, September 17 Boston, and September 19 New York. So there are some pictures from the Srila Prabhupada diary, but it is so condensed that you can't read. But it's in Srila Prabhupada, wonderful handwriting. And there is a photo that when the Butler Eagle went to take the picture, it's a beautiful picture. You can see nicely. Holding the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then there is a picture Prabhupada is cooking in Sally Agarwal's kitchen. He prepared his milk in a brass pan with separate levels for steaming rice, vegetable, and making bread at the same time. This picture is also famous, but when I visited, it's in the kitchen, Prabhupada is cooking. And when I went to the Mississippi farm, they said this kitchen picture is taken in Mississippi, but over here it shows in Butler, maybe similar story. Srila Prabhupada was there when the Gopal Agarwal's first son, Bridge, first stood, and it was a celebration, and Prabhupada is, treating him very nicely. Then there is a picture of the Butler YMCA, the big, huge building. And then who would expect to meet a Swami in someone's living room in Butler, Pennsylvania? Riverside Drive, Dr. Mishra's apartment was on the 14th floor. Then there is a picture when it became inconvenient to maintain Srila Prabhupada at the apartment. Dr. Mishra shifted him to his Hatha Yoga studio on the 5th floor of 100 West 72nd Street near Central Park. Srila Prabhupada talking with Dr. Mishra at Anand Ashram. The picture is there. Then there is a picture of 143 West 72nd Street. The ground floor may be utilized for preparation of prasadam. After purchasing the house, we can build another story upon it with a temple, dome, chakra, etc. The block where Srila Prabhupada lived on the Bowery consisted of 2 saloons, a flop house, and 2 buildings with lots. Nice picture. Then there is a picture of the 75th Street along Srila Prabhupada daily walk to Dr. Mishra's apartment, and the road is full with the snow. Haribol. Next picture is Srila Prabhupada on the Bowery, photographed by Fred McDonough of the Village Boys, June 1965. And there is a street entrance to 94 Bowery. Front door is showing, and Srila Prabhupada couple of pictures are there. So at Prabhupada's request, however, Mr. Agarwal held a kind of open house in his apartment every night from 6 to 9. What a sacrifice they did, huh? Shirley, explaining this in her own words, it was quite an intellectual group that we were in, and they were fascinated by him. They hardly knew what to ask him. They didn't know enough. This was just like a dream out of a book. Who would expect to meet a Swami in someone's living room in Butler, Pennsylvania? It was just really tremendous in the middle of middle-class America. My parents came from quite a distance to see him. We knew a lot of people in Pittsburgh, and they came up. This was a very unusual thing, having him here, but the real interest shown in him was only as a curiosity. He had a typewriter, which was one of his few possessions, and an umbrella. That was one of the things that caused a sensation, that he always carried an umbrella, and it was a little chilly, and he was balding. So he always wore this hat that someone has made for him, like a swimming cap. It was kind of sensation, and he was so brilliant that where he saw someone twice, he knew who they were. Haribo. He remembered them. He was a brilliant man. Or if he met them in our apartment and saw them in a car, he would remember their name, and he would wave and say their name. He was a brilliant man. All the people liked him. They were amazed at how intelligent he was. The thing that got them was the way he remembered their name and his humorous way. He looked so serious all the time, but he was a very humorous person. He was forbidding in his looks, but he was very charming. He was the easiest guest I have had in my life, because when I couldn't spend time with him, he chanted, and I knew he was perfectly happy. When I couldn't talk to him, he chanted. He was so easy, though, because I knew he was never bored. I never felt any pressure or tension about having him. He was so easy that when I had to take care of the children, he would just chant. It was so great. When I had to do things, he would just be happy chanting. He was a very good guest. When the people would come, they were always smoking cigarettes. But he would say, quote, "Pay no attention, think nothing of it." That's what he said. Think nothing of it. How much Prabhupada become lenient with new people? Because he knew we were different. I didn't smoke in front of him. I knew I wasn't supposed to smoke in front of Gopal's father. So I sort of consider him the same. He didn't make any problem for anybody. One evening, a guest asked Prabhupada, quote, "What do you think of Jesus Christ?" And Prabhupada replied, quote, "He is the Son of God." Then he added that he, the guest, was also a son of God. Everyone was interested to hear that the Swami accepted Jesus Christ as the Son of God. So Gopal Agarwal Prabhu saying in his own word, his intent was not to have any change your way of life. He wasn't telling anybody that they should be vegetarian or anything. All he wanted you to do was to follow what you are, but be better. He didn't stress that we should give up many things. Srila Prabhupada followed a regulated daily schedule. Every morning, he would walk 6 or 7 blocks from the YMCA to Sterling apartment, arriving there about 7. When he had first landed in New York, he had in his luggage a large bundle of dried cereal similar to roll oats. This simply was enough for several weeks, and every morning at breakfast he would take some with milk. At 7:45, Gopal would leave for work, and around 9:30, Prabhupada would start preparing his lunch in the kitchen. He made his chapatis by hand without even a rolling pin. He worked alone for 2 hours while Mrs. Agarwal did housework and took care of the children. At 11:30, he will take prasadam. So Sally is describing in his own words as follows. When he cooked, he used only one burner. The bottom level pot created the steam. He had the dal on the bottom, and he created the steam to cook many other vegetables. So for about a week, he was cooking his great big lunch, which was ready about 11:30. And Gopal always came home for lunch about 12. I used to serve Gopal a sandwich, and then he would go back to work. But it didn't take me long to realize that the food the Swami was cooking we had enjoyed too. So he started cooking that noon meal for all of us. Oh, and we enjoyed so much. Our fun was to show him what we knew of America, and he had never seen such things. It was such fun to take him to the supermarket. He loved opening the package of okra or frozen beans, and he didn't have to clean them and cut them and do all those things. He opened the freezer every day and just chose his items. It was fun to watch him. He sat on the couch while I swept with the vacuum cleaner, and he was so interested in that. And we talked for a long time about that. He was so interesting. So every day he had have this big feast, and everything was great fun. We really enjoyed it. I would help him cut things. He would spice it, and we would laugh. He was the most enjoyable man. Most enjoyable man. I really felt like a sort of daughter to him, even in such a short time, like he was my father-in-law. He was friend of my father-in-law, but I really felt very close to him. He enjoyed everything. I liked him. I thought he was tremendous. After lunch, Prabhupada would leave about 1 a.m. and walk to the YMCA, where the Agarwals figure he must have worked at his writing until 5. He would come back to their apartment about 6 in the evening. After they had taken their meal, they ate meat, so Mrs. Agarwal was careful to have it cleared away before he came. When one night he came early, so she said, quote, "Oh Swamiji, we have just cooked meat and the smell will be very disagreeable to you," unquote. But he said, quote, "Oh, think nothing of it. Think nothing of it." Haribo. What a austerity. In the evening, we should learn this, from Prabhupada, that how to deal with the new people. Don't show off so many things. In the evening, he would speak with guests, and the guests would usually take coffee and other refreshment, but he would request a glass of warm milk at 9 o'clock. He would stay speaking until 9:30 or 10, and then Mr. Agarwal would drive him back to the YMCA. Prabhupada would also do his own laundry every day. He washed his clothes in the Agarwal's bathroom and hung them to dry outside. He sometimes accompanied the Agarwals to the laundromat and was interested to see how Americans washed and dried their clothes. To Sally, he seemed very interested in the American ways and people. So Sally is explaining in her own words as follows. Our boy Bridge was 6 or 7 months old when the Swami came, and the Indian love boys. The Swami liked Bridge. He was there when Bridge first stood. The first time Bridge made the attempt and actually succeeded. The Swami stood up and clapped. It was a celebration. Another time, our baby teeth on the Swami's shoes. I thought, quote, "Oh, those shoes, they have been all over India, and my kid is chewing on them," unquote. You know how a mother would feel. Almost every night he used to sit in the next door neighbor's backyard. We sat out there sometime with him, or we stayed in the living room. One time something happened with our little girl, Pamela, who was only 3 years old. I used to take her to Sydney school, and she learned about Jesus in the Sunday school. Then when she would see Swamiji with his robes and everything, she called him Swami Jesus. And this one time when it first dawned on us what she was saying, she called him Swami Jesus. And Swami smiled and says, quote, "And a little child said, 'Lead them,'" unquote. It was so funny. Prabhupada spoke to various groups in the community. He spoke at the Lions Club in early October and received a formal document. Be it known that A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami was guest at the Lions Club of Butler, Pennsylvania, as an expression of appreciation for services rendered. The club tendered this acknowledgement. He also gave a talk at the Y and at St. Fidelis Seminary College in Hermann, Pennsylvania, and he spoke regularly to guests at the Agarwal's home. When Professor Larson, the chairman of the philosophy department at Slippery Rock State College, read in the Butler Eagle of a visiting Indian Swami and Vedic scholar, he found the Agarwal's home to invite Prabhupada to lecture on campus. So Alan Larson is describing in his own word as follows. I called the number given in the newspaper article, but it turned out that the Swamiji was actually staying in a room at the YMCA. When I arrived, he was waiting on the street corner and I picked him up. He seems very much alone. When we were driving to Slippery Rock, I asked him to pronounce his name for me so I would have it right when I introduced him to my class. He said, quote, Swamiji Bhaktivedanta. And then he proceeded to tell me what that meant. Since I was not used to Indian names, he had to repeat it several times before I got it right. He showed no impatience with my slowness. Even at this early junction of our association, I was convinced that this man had an inner stability and strength that would be very difficult to shake. And this initial impression was further reinforced throughout the rather busy day. 100 students from several classes has gathered to hear the lecture. As Prabhupada in his natural, unrehearsed manner walked down the aisle up the 3 wooden steps and onto the plain wooden stage. He sat down erect and cross-legged and began softly singing Hare Krishna, his eyes closed. Then he stood and spoke without a lectern or microphone and answered questions from the audience. The program lasted only 50 minutes and ended abruptly with a bell signaling the next class. So Professor Alan Larson described in his word, after the first class, I had a short conversation with the Swamiji while sitting outside on the bench on the campus lawn. Most of the time, when he was not directly engaged in conversation, he would repeat a short prayer while moving prayer beads through his fingers. He was sitting up cross-legged and we were speaking back and forth. He said that the trees around us were beautiful and he asked, quote, what kind of trees are these? I replied, they are shade trees. Then he said that it was too bad they weren't fruit or nut trees to provide food and benefit people. At 1 o'clock, Prabhupada lectured again, and afterward, he accompanied Dr. Mohan Sharma, a member of the faculty who had attended the lecture, and his 16-year-old daughter, Minnie, to Dr. Sharma's campus residence. Prabhupada accepted warm milk and dry fruit, and after Dr. Sharma's request, blessed his home and touched the forehead of his daughter in a gesture of benedictions. Around 3 o'clock, Professor Larson drove him back to Butler. So Professor is explaining in his word, the Swamiji seemed to present himself as an Indian scholar who had come for a short time to do translation work. I never thought of him as a missionary, but during the course of the day, they grew in me a warm affection for this man, because he was unmistakably a good man who had found his way to a stability and peace that is very rare. The lectures in Pennsylvania give Prabhupada his first reading of how his message would be received in America. At Commonwealth Pier in Boston, he has stated in his poem, quote, I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Unquote. Now, this principle was actually being tested in the field. Would they be able to understand? Were they interested? And would they surrender? What is the time? 6:54. I think it's time to close our session. Devotee has to go and take care of their duties. So thank you very much for joining every morning. Without your help, how can we remain so steadfast, right? So I'm in debt to you for your kindness toward me. And I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the feet of these Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo